clusters to haul back again. So all Adam Christodoulou has got to do is just not make any huge errors as he squirms and slides his way out of Hohenrhein. And this is a good run for Fred Makovic this time down the main straight because of that throttle application that had to be so careful. And Adam Christodoulou in full defensive mode now, virtually touching the pit lane as he heads down. And Makovic is going to be as late on the brakes as he can, but he's no grip out there either. Christodoulou's not going to make the corner, is he? They're side by side into the second round. There's contact in the second bit of the Yokohama S, and Christodoulou spun. Adam Christodoulou spins to 90 degrees and the Porsche is by. Fred Makovic is through, screams down at Manthey, and Black Falcon think, what on earth is happening here? Because Christodoulou, after the contact, spins only to about 90 degrees though. He was able to find first gear pretty quickly, and Fred Makovic are now scrabbling for grip as they run downhill to the Dunlop hairpin once more. This is still far from decided, folks.
The Porsche has been held up by that Mercedes now. We're going to see that Porsche disappear, I'm afraid. Especially, it's got more nimble handling, it's got better grip through the twisty bits. The Mercedes might have the straight line, but that Porsche's got the performance elsewhere. I think we're going to see the Porsche now leave the Mercedes behind.
I think you're right, Joe. Cast your mind back 23 and a bit hours, because the Manthey Porsche disappeared off like a scalded cat at the beginning of the race, didn't he? I just am wondering whether Black Falcon might be able to pull a cat out of the bag by not being, because they're going to come in later, that will be a shorter pit stop that they'll be able to do at the end. And depending, because the amount of fuel they need is not what dictates it, it's the length of that pit stop. This isn't over yet, because you're going to get to that final pit stop, and the Black Falcon car, even if he's a few seconds behind, is going to have a shorter pit stop, although it won't be a huge amount of difference.
Christodoulou very nearly missed the first corner. He went so far into the first bit of the Yokohama S, so it was an outside-inside touch for Fred Makovic. That gave him the outside line, and contact was almost unavoidable there as the two trajectories of the Porsche and the Mercedes met in the middle. Fred Makovic was trying to give Christodoulou some racing room, or was he, into that area? I have no doubt that that incident's going to be looked at again, although no messages on the screen just yet to confirm that. And we tend to find you get this late into an endurance race and the instruction is to let them race. 0.286 of a second now between Hubert Haupt and Maxime Martin. It got very close indeed as they crossed the line in third and fourth. They're a lap off the leading duo that we keep talking about, but nevertheless that could change before the flag as well. Jelmer Berman, remember, is a lap off the pace of Christodoulou and Makovic, but Berman's way down the order, having made a mistake or at least had contact at the first corner after the restart.
And I think we've got a similar situation for third and fourth, with the Haupt number 6 Mercedes just having the legs of the Aston Martin, which has clearly got more performance when it comes to the twisty bits, being held up. And if Maxime can make that move like we saw Fred Makovic move, and it was a knife edge squirming and on the limit, absolute limit of adhesion on both of those cars. If we can see the Aston do that, I think we're going to see the Aston leave the Mercedes behind and clinch and claim that final podium position.
Well, Christodoulou's found 4/10 on Makovic in the second sector, so Adam Christodoulou getting wound up here to try and close the gap again.
The race started, remember, on lap 125, so we had a lap behind the safety car as a formation lap, and since then we've had 3 laps of this race. My little thumbnail calculator here says we're going to go up to lap 135 before we get to the 24 hours. So that means that we're going to end up having a race, in effect, here of 10 laps. Good luck, little 10-lap clubby. Now, no way can any of the SP9 cars do a race of 10 laps on a single tank of fuel.
Even in the rain?
Even in the rain, I don't think, because we would have seen it if it was going to happen in the rain that we had earlier in the race.
And the problem for the two leaders is they can't afford to go into fuel-saving mode at any point here, because it is a tug of war between Porsche and Mercedes as these laps are steadily ticked off. Now, you said it wasn't an aggregate race. I realise that's certainly not the case in terms of time, but when the result is published later on this afternoon, it will have the 130 30-odd laps on the result, will it? Rather than 10, let's say.
It will, and lap 124 will be of the order of a 2 hours and 10-minute lap time.
Okay. So, yes, the red flag effectively timed, therefore, but it is very much like a 4 and an 8 hour race that you might get in the 24H series, as in they stop overnight, do a bit on Friday, a bit more on Saturday, and tag the two sections of the race together. Just the race time isn't necessarily carried through. But we completed over 100 laps in the first part. What was it, 124 as the red flag came out, or 125?
It came out on 125. Originally, it came out on 127, but we went back to 125 because of the red flag rule. Need to go back to the lap before the red flag came out.
And this is lap 129, and Fred Makovic trying his level best to shake the Mercedes, but I'd say it's still getting larger in the rear-view mirror. We'll know in a second. In fact, they've already been through the split, and that was time gained again by Adam Christodoulou. We're talking tenths, but 4 tenths in sector 2, 3 tenths in sector 3, and all of a sudden that gap's going to come down again. And bear in mind, we know the Mercedes is very strong down the Dottinger Höhe. So I think I agree with you, Joe, in that the Porsche's held up through areas like the Hatzenbach, but there's lots of full throttle sections of this Nordschleife circuit, and I'm impressed that Adam Christodoulou hasn't let that moment phase him. He just forgets it, and that's the key to great people, the greats in sport, is that you make a slight mistake or something doesn't go your way, instantly get it away from your mind, as Fred Makovic decides not to take to the concrete at all at the carousel.
He slipped out, completely slipped out the carousel. If you go in there too hot, it just kind of spits you out. You lose grip on the concrete.
Yeah,
which
that is like ice in this weather, isn't it?
The carousel, the concrete part of the carousel was the drainage ditch. The track, you meant to go and stay on the tarmac. And it was, maybe it was Cracciola himself that ditch hooked the whole drainage concrete ditch and put the car in it.
Right.
And fired the car out. I'm just noticing both drivers are using the non-textbook wet line, which is offline where the grip is. There is no rubber, there's no constant use on that piece of tarmac, and you can find grip, remarkable amounts of grip off the line, and that's what we're seeing from not just the two leading cars, but also the cars behind them. Haupt, Martin Berman, Van der Linde, they're all doing what needs to be done.
Down the hill to Brunchen they go, and Fred Makovic again is wide. The Porsche is slithering and sliding. It's getting understeer. It's giving him oversteer as well. What of the battle for third and fourth? Time gained by Maxime Martin to the tune of 0.8 of a second. And Berman's way back, unfortunately, after that spin. No, it's good times, but Berman lost a load of time at the Yokohama S, so actually sits behind Maxi Gerst, doesn't he? Or
yeah, he's about 21. He's 21 seconds behind Maxime Martin.
Yeah, so it's
which is a 24-hour race. I mean, that's miles behind, isn't it?
Isn't it just? So we have I know on this lap, John, very good times, but as I say, he lost about half a minute as the race was restarted. So the timing screen tells us he's in 5th place, but bear in mind that he is, because he's just a lap off the lead. Now we've got traffic, Joe, and we predicted traffic a lot later than this, although Fred Makovic and Adam Christodoulou have got through that pretty quickly. Fred deciding to go again the high side of the Schwalbenschwanz too. So that's where all the grip is, the asphalt rather than the concrete, and I can totally understand that as Adam Christodoulou's off the road and into the barrier. Adam Christodoulou in car number 4 hits the barrier to driver's left, and that was him pushing too hard into Galgenkopf, and that might have decided it, depending on how much damage has been done to the front left corner of the Mercedes. He's still going to keep the right pedal nailed down the Dottinger Höhe, but no longer is Fred Makovic visible for Adam Christodoulou. He's way up the road, and that, as I say, might just have decided it Porsche's way, Joe.
Just shows how hard that Adam was pushing. You know, he was just scrambling that last bit of momentum to get him out onto the Dottinger Hook and carry that speed. But he just ran out of grip, didn't he? He just went off to the left, kissed the barrier. Not quite sure just what, if any, damage has been caused to that Mercedes. They're quite a robust car.
They are, and it looks like the dive planes are actually still intact. He was all over the standing water on driver's right, then turned in at the usual point at Gaugenkopf, and it just understeered off into the barrier. But what the barrier did was actually just bounce the car back onto the tarmac, and if he's hit it sort of relatively straight, maybe the Mercedes will be okay. It's not coming to the pits because Anna Christodoulou is still flashing the lights on the main straight. Obviously, you don't want to come into the pits because that really would decide it. Front left corner, showing a little bit of a scar, but he might have got away with that. Incredible.
Even the winglets on the front